All right, we've got a special one for you today. I'm talking with Kyle Gray, the guy on the other side of the screen. Kyle is the author of several books, including the Story Engine, and Selling with Story. I've talked to him multiple times over the past several years. Very helpful, very insightful, of course, when it comes to story. You're going to hear that word a lot. Title of his books and what he really knows. All right, so what we did, we sat down and we talked about how you can use stories for yourself. Even as agency owners, maybe a lot of times we don't think about that a lot of times. But Kyle goes into this and really shares with us three types of stories that you can use. How you can use frameworks to improve your stories, your abilities. So if you're down here on the storytelling ability or you're up here, ways you can get better about that. I love it. He really went in to using stories aligned with a call to action on sales calls, which is great. He gave some great examples of this, as well as some other great pieces about using humor, things like that. Now, there is a link down below if you're interested. Kyle has offered a 45-minute free session that will help you kind of map out your story roadmap. And if you're interested in what he does after that, he's going to be doing some sessions in August where you can jump into that. But you can find out more about that at the link below. Please watch the rest of this if you're interested in using stories that engage, that help you tell your story and educate without just dumping information on people. And this can be used, of course, for sales calls, but for so much more in your life. If you're a speaker, whatever it is, this has just really wide applicability. So I'm going to wrap up the intro for now, and we are just going to jump right into it. Let's go.
Hey, all you agency owners out there. I am so excited and honored to be sharing some of my hard-earned wisdom with you all today. Adam, Moody, thank you so much for having me. You are all a group of people that I have a lot of empathy for. As I maybe this is a little bit discredifying, but I've had an agency before. I've run a marketing agency. I had a team of copywriters and designers all across the world. And I know your challenges and the incredible possibilities and upsides that come with running an agency. And one of the things that I see that's common with agency owners, as many of my other clients being entrepreneurs, coaches, leaders, visionaries, is oftentimes because we are so good at what we do and so experienced and so smart that it actually becomes a challenge for us because we have so much information, so much knowledge, so many stories, so many excellent things to share that we get lost in the woods of our own experience. And when somebody comes and talks to us, we feel all this excitement, all this emotion, all this knowledge, and it all seems to try and come out of our mouth all at the same time. And we can't ever seem to get that right story. We talk people into the ground until they feel like they're running away from us. And today I'm going to show you some very simple storytelling techniques that you can use in a signature talk presentation, that you could use on a sales call, that you could use on a webinar, on podcasts, on content, almost anything that's going to allow you to very concisely, very precisely describe your unique value and why you are the best option for your ideal customer.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate it, Kyle. And I mean, I'm happy that everyone is getting a chance to hear this. I'm happy I'm getting a chance to hear this because I know stories are important, and it's such a difference when you get pulled into a conversation or you're listening to a story. It's such a different reaction. I know that. And so this is something I've wanted to work on myself and will continue to do. So again, I appreciate you sharing this with everybody.
Absolutely. So with that, let's dive in and talk about, we've got three storytelling techniques I want to share with you today. First, we're going to talk about your unforgettable origin story. This is how you introduce yourself at the beginning of an interview, a podcast, anything. And this is what we use to really show the audience, hey, I understand the pain you're going through. I understand exactly what your problem is, and I feel for you. And I've done the hard work to figure out the solution. So, and then secondly, we'll be just going into success projection stories. These are ways that you can talk about your past clients, how you've helped them be successful, and you can weave these in to what you are teaching so that people feel like they're getting value, they're being educated, and simultaneously you're talking about your products and services, getting them inspired to work with you and visualizing what it's like to be successful with you. And finally, we'll go into aligned ending stories. How do we close our thoughts? How do we close out our content with a call to action that leaves us with that same feeling that we have at the end of a movie, and just with the moral of the story, like, I've got to work with this person.
Awesome.
So, an unforgettable origin story. This is one of the most undervalued aspects and pieces of storytelling. And a lot of people think that, oh, if I'm talking about myself, this is just a bunch of hype that nobody wants to hear. They want to get the meat and potatoes information. And if I'm just talking about myself, I'm just hyping myself up and fluffing up my content. But that's simply not the case. A lot of people have this. I feel like a lot of people see how we educate our clients in the same way that maybe we went to college and like a really like high-end honors class, and on the first day the professor walks in and he's like, you should have read chapters 1 through 10 already, and if you haven't done it, too bad. And that's kind of how we start. We're like, should have done your homework already. But really what we want is to meet them where they are. And this is what this story does. And so what we do with an unforgettable origin story, and what I do with a lot of my clients, is I figure out who their ideal client is. What's the experience of their problem like? For agency owners, a lot of your clients are, particularly in marketing, they're not experiencing enough cash flow. They're not getting their clients fast enough. They're not being seen. And there's certain implications for this down the line. If they don't get seen now, are they going to be able to stay in business? Are they going to be able to continue to provide for their families? How do they feel about themselves as a leader, as a creator? Are they going to be able to provide for their team members? Because there's a tremendous weight on your shoulders as an agency owner. You've got a lot of people looking up to you to make sure that you're bringing in enough clients to keep everybody going. So we really figure out what is the experience of the problem. And then I ask my clients, when did you feel like this? And almost inevitably, they'll go back to a moment. They often say things like, wow, I've never thought about this, or I'd never thought I would use this, or yeah, the stories that are most valuable seem to be buried or almost invisible to us. But once we can hone in on that moment, then we can craft this origin story. And there's 3 parts to it. It's a 3-act play. So in act 1, we talk about a moment in your life that reflects that pain, that problem, that very specific moment where you were frustrated and you decided, I can't take this anymore, and I need to figure out a new and different solution. That's what act 1 looks like. Then we go into act 2. This is like the Rocky montage. You're like, I don't know exactly how I'm going to find the solution, but I'm going to work really hard and put all of these pieces together into something that's really going to work for me this time. And over the course of lots of hard work, lots of costly and painful mistakes, you figured out the shortcut. And so you start to describe not what you did. You're not going to teach us the technical aspects of what you're doing, but you want to describe, I want a solution that makes marketing fun. I want a solution that anybody could fit into their busy day. What's unique about what you want to deliver to your clients? And how can you describe that in your process for putting this solution together? And then finally, we have act 3, which is the fulfillment, the completion. This is the opposite of the act 1 where they're experiencing the problem. Now you're experiencing the solution, what your audience wants. And you realize in this moment that you could help so many more people with this same information, with this same knowledge. And that's why you set out on this goal to do so. And by combining these 3 elements of a story together in about 3 to 5 minutes, you can paint a picture that shows your audience exactly why you care, how you understand them, and what's going to be unique about your solution, so that they're actually open to listening to what you have to teach them later. This builds the human credibility, not just the resume credibility, but knowing that, okay, Adam definitely has my back and he has the solution, and I want to hear what he has to say next.
So, Kyle, question about that. I think this is interesting. What would you say to somebody? We look at people who tell stories and do it well, and I know that there's work that goes into that, but I'm sure there's some people who are just kind of more naturally gifted at this. If somebody wants to get started and understands, yes, that storytelling is a really important skill, how could somebody do this? Should they list this type of thing out, write it down first? Like, what would you recommend? How would somebody get started if they're not kind of already incorporating this stuff?
Absolutely. So I use frameworks in everything I do. And again, as a recovering agency owner myself, I know that one of the most important things that we can do in an agency is have SOPs, processes that are reliable, repeatable, reusable. And the frameworks that I use to tell these stories, for example, the unforgettable origin story and the 3-act play within it, once we can start to work in these frameworks over and over again, you will start to work the muscles of exactly how to tell the story, why to tell the story. And in the same way that you build a process so that your team can continuously create consistent results, studying the frameworks of great storytelling will allow you to also replicate that. But so where we would start, for a lot of my clients, I have a workbook that I ask a bunch of different questions on. They'll come fill out this workbook or we'll work on it together. And this is where I'm asking them a lot of these questions, like how would your audience describe their problem to like a friend over coffee?
Yeah.
What are they afraid of happening if this doesn't happen? And like, go even deeper and like, what's their secret fears underneath this that's really driving them?
Yeah.
Do they care about their family? They care about their team. And if they're really scared that this is not enough, we want to tap into those deep emotions. And a lot of us, we don't actually have a lot of practice being and feeling and moving in kind of an emotional state like this. So again, that's why the frameworks are really helpful. And so starting with a 3-act play and just knowing what act 1, 2, and 3, if you start telling stories and kind of piecing them together, you will immediately start seeing results. You can start practicing these stories, tell it to somebody on your next sales call, tell it to somebody, who you're just chatting with.
Yeah.
You'll start to see a different kind of feedback. It's better than analytics when you can start telling a story and somebody starts to lean in, it immediately. And once you get that first taste of that, you'll never be the same.
Awesome. Thanks. Well, yeah, I appreciate it. I 100% on the framework side agree. I had the word had slipped my mind, but yes, like any agency owner would understand SOPs, frameworks, and then that just helps you kind of iterate over time and just get better and better. So cool. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. So we've told our origin story, and now people are excited to hear what we have to teach. And of course, this is the time where we are at our best and at our worst, when we really unleash the fire hose on our poor, unsuspecting audience. What happens when a lot of people start teaching is we see teaching as we want to give people as much information as possible to how to solve their problem. We want to demonstrate, because we are problem solvers, because we have spent many, many years of our lives developing these skills and solving these problems, and our technical expertise is profound, that we start to talk about the aspects of how to solve this problem. But a lot of the times when we talk about how to, the audience isn't really ready for this yet. The question the audience is asking themselves at this moment in the presentation is, okay, I trust Adam. It seems like he's an authority, but what he has to say, is this really going to work for me? Let me give you an example from a health space, and we can translate this over to marketing. I work a lot with different health coaches that use natural and alternative methods to mainstream medicine. And if somebody who has a certain health condition has been going through mainstream medicine and being consistently told, there's no hope for you, just take this medication, there's nothing we can do, If somebody like that shows up to a webinar with one of these natural health practitioners and they start telling me about all of the things that I would need to do, changing my diet, cutting out the gluten, doing this and that and this and that, and I believe that there's nothing that can do to change my situation, am I going to listen to the teaching? No.
Yeah.
Same thing with like an agency. If I'm like, wow, SEO is just way too complicated, I'm never going to figure this out. Ads are changing all of the time. I'm just going to be throwing money on a fire when I do this. If they really believe that, then it doesn't matter how much knowledge you give them on how to place their pixel or what retargeting is or what the Google My Business tags are, anything like that. We're not ready for that. And so instead of teaching and focusing on how to solve the problem, focus on a higher level of what to do and why it's important. And we want to instead focus on shifting their beliefs about what's possible for them instead of showing them exactly how to solve the problem. So how do we do that? One of the best ways to do it is by giving an example of somebody just like them that we've worked with before, and we can anticipate whatever their belief is about why this isn't possible, why this wouldn't work for them, why it's not worked in the past before. And in telling a story about a client, we can say, you know, one of my clients, Bill, he came to me and he said, you know, my local business just isn't getting enough traffic. And I've been spending money upon money upon money on ads. I've hired several agencies before, and I just feel like they don't do anything and just kind of like run away with a big lump of cash. And I'm frustrated. And so I said, Bill, we're going to do things differently. And this time we're going to focus on, you know, one specific offer, whatever is unique about you. And you start to describe how you focused on, okay, you were trying it this way. We're going to try it a little bit differently this way. And then you describe the results that they got. And so by teaching to shift a belief about what's possible, we open up the playing field for possibilities. So no longer, we're going to be the first person that they hear who's showing them, look at this whole new world that's possible that you haven't been considering because you've been looking at this problem the wrong way. What are some of the ways, Adam, that you feel agency owners are, particularly clients of agency owners, what is one of the biggest objections that they bring?
Oh man. Yeah, like a lot of things, like you mentioned pricing, right? Like someone's just going to come in and run off with a big chunk of change, or that I know for a lot, it's coming in and being concerned about who they're going to actually deal with. You know, maybe I'm on a call with the owner, but am I just going to be passed off to somebody on a team? And, you know, never will I be as important as I was on the sales call.
Yeah, great. And so, yeah, that's a perfect one. Like, okay, so Bill gave me a call and he said, I've been through several agencies before. I don't know, like they took a bunch of money and then they just put me off with some intern and I never felt important again. But one of the things about my agency and Somatic Mastery is we really want to create a deep personal connection. We see ourselves as partners in your business and we are invested in your success. And that's why I personally have calls with all of my clients every week to make sure that they are getting exactly what they need. And I am always doing my best to make sure that I have some good information or some new strategies that we can have. And once he was able to see that, hey, I'm invested in this with you, then he started to relax. He started to really be able to delegate more of the tasks over to the agency that we really needed and let us do our best work. And once we were both in our lanes and trusting each other, their business took off.
Cool. I like it.
And so, yeah, this is really one of the most magical aspects. And I'll put it in a different kind of context. I see teaching and selling as kind of a spectrum. And you can imagine like teaching is on the blue end of the spectrum and selling is on the red end. And a lot of people, because we have been traumatized in one form or another by somebody being on a webinar, being on a podcast, being on a sales call, and just pushing so hard on the selling, that we tend to try to avoid that and just teach as much as possible. But again, a lot of the times, if we're just teaching this how-to stuff, then we actually do a disservice to our audience. Like if you teach me the 3 killer tips to set up Google My Business, and I start like setting up my Google My Business, and then I've got it going. At best, I'm going to feel like, okay, I can go do this on my own now, and I go try it, and I maybe do it 5% as well as anybody else on your team could have done it. And then I give up after 2 weeks, and I'm like, this stuff doesn't work. And if you're teaching like that, you are doing a disservice to your clients. You are harming people. You are keeping them stuck where you are because you're teaching them too much instead of leaning into your value and leaning into selling, which is where this success projection story comes in. It's right in the middle, the nice green yellow form of the spectrum, a good mix of selling, a good mix of teaching, so people feel like they're getting value. They're getting their biggest objections overcome before we even see them. And we can start to open them up to more possibilities. I'll give you one good example of a success projection story. This will go back to kind of the doctor's example. One of my clients, his name is Dr. Greg Eckel, and he runs a naturopathic clinic out of Portland. Before the pandemic, people were coming into his clinic, and they would offer him a package, and they'd be like, well, do I need to take all those supplements? Do I need to do all these extras? Can't I just order this piece by piece? They were kicking the tires and complaining at every stage of the game. And that's a drag, having to deal with people like that in your sales process. And so he needed a change of course once the pandemic hit. And so he started running online summits and creating online products and services where many other clinics were just being shuttered up.
Yeah.
And he put on a summit called the Parkinson's Solution Summit. He worked with neurodegenerative disease because of an experience with his former wife, or losing a wife to neurodegenerative disease. So he's very passionate about this. And but a lot of the things, like I said earlier, anybody with Parkinson's or neurodegenerative disease or somebody in your family will know, like the experience of visiting a doctor is very much going to them and saying, hey, you're getting worse, take this medication, and in 6 months come back and I'll tell you you're still getting worse. So again, if they have that impression, then they're not going to be ready to listen to what Dr. Greg has to say. They're not going to be ready to fly to Portland to his clinic and spend 5 figures for their health because they just don't believe that they have any options.
Yeah.
And so we needed to create a killer success projection story to solve this problem. And so here's what we did. And I'll just be Greg right now.
All right.
So one of my clients, Frank, came into my clinic and he said, Greg, I'm tired of being told by all my doctors that I'm just getting worse. And I've tried everything and I can't seem to find any solutions. And I said, Frank, you know what? I don't think we've actually dug deep enough. I don't think we actually really know what's happening here. They say you have Parkinson's, but there's a lot of things that look like Parkinson's that aren't really. And so we're going to run a few tests and see what's really going on inside your body. And with a few tests, we started with a few tests. We found out that he had something called heavy metal toxicity, which actually has a lot of the same symptoms as a neurodegenerative disease, but is treated very differently. And so he left my clinic having way more options to improve and help his quality of life than he had ever experienced before. And just like that, we were able to address and overcome an objection.
Cool. Well, I've got a question for you, Kyle, because as you're doing this, obviously, I know that you know a lot about stories, but this kind of falls on my first question too. And as you kind of played the role of the doctor there, was Greg the doctor's name?
Greg was the doctor's name.
Greg. So when you work with him, what kind of helped make him, was he a naturally good storyteller? Did he have some sort of skills or traits? Or is this like, you walked in, you're like, oh man, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to help this guy. And, you were able to teach it, or like, how does that work?
Great question. Well, there's a couple of reasons I love I love working with health professionals like this. One, I have experienced my own health journeys, and people just like Greg have made a profound impact on my life. So there's a deep purpose. Two, they sell products at a price point that would make many marketers blush,
Yeah.
because they sell very high ticket items, and their sophistication in marketing and business is dismal at best. Greg's not a great storyteller. He's spent decades studying naturopathy, Chinese herbs, acupuncture, all of these things. And just like all of you, all of his knowledge gets caught up, and he would just kind of like fire hose people or just get lost in his own thoughts when he was speaking to people. And this is what a lot of when I work privately with clients, I just let them dump all of this information out, and I'm just listening and processing and kind of running it through the frameworks, which I've done now thousands and thousands of times. So I'm really comfortable helping them create a story and show it in that way. But again, if we have a couple of simple frameworks, which I'll share a few with you after this call that will be useful that you can get started on. And I'd love to even, as we finish up kind of laying down the foundations, we can create an origin story for you or work through something if we have a little bit of time to just see what this process is like. But again, nobody is, there are people who are more natural storytellers. There are people who are more extroverted, who are getting out there and sharing this. But most of the people that come to me, they're not like that. They have great products. They know they're valuable, and they know that they're getting in their own way trying to explain it. And so just by having somebody that can help you figure this out, get it clear, and get results faster than you ever thought possible is absolutely worth it.
Cool. Okay. Thanks.
Yeah. So finally, we'll go into our aligned ending story. This is what we do. By this point, we have introduced ourselves, we've taught what we have to teach, and now we are giving our call to action. There's a tremendous amount that goes into what makes a really good call to action that we don't have quite time for on this. So we'll skip that for now, but here's what we do after we give the call to action. We want to tell one last story. Now, this is typically a story that we share from our own lives that has nothing to do with what we were just teaching about or talking about or that topic, but it has the same moral. Now, every story, we tell stories because they have a moral, they have a lesson within them. And there's a couple of good morals that we would like to explore at the end of our presentation. One could be take action now. And this would be a story, maybe you tell a story about a time where you wanted to do something, maybe you almost did something, or you wanted to maybe a few friends offered to come on, Adam, let's go on a road trip. And you're like, oh, I've got a busy week. I don't know if I want to do that. And you're like, oh, I'll go for it. And so and then you went on the adventure, and it was one of the best choices you've ever made. Okay. Another one is a try something new. Maybe you for a long time, you were doing things one way. You always knew that the toilet paper goes over the roll, not under the roll. And then someday somebody taught you, and somebody comes up to you and shows you well, if you actually do toilet paper under the roll, then you have these benefits, and it changes everything. I don't actually agree with that, but just as an example, I'm an over the roll type.
Good man.
Yeah. Or I'll give you an example of a hidden gem one. This is one of my stories that I use, and this is one of the best ones for marketers in particular. So if I'm speaking at a marketing or business conference, or if I want to talk about marketing, I would use a story like this. Thank you, everybody, for listening to me, and I so appreciate you. For a long time, when I didn't have full control over my health, I wasn't able to do a lot of the things that I loved. And once I got my health back, I got my fitness back, I was so excited. Now, I used to live in Utah, and one of my favorite places to visit was Zion's National Park. This is an incredible park with amazing cliff panoramas, some of the most beautiful rocks and canyons in the world. Now, one of the things about this place is in this park, you need to take shuttles up and down the park to get to different places. And being in a hot, stuffy shuttle with a bunch of people and crying babies isn't one of my favorite things to do. And so I brought my bike to the park and had a completely different experience there. I didn't need to ride in the shuttles. And so I was riding along. I saw a herd of deer. I got to dip my feet in the river, and I'm riding deeper and deeper between any of these shuttle stops. And I find this little canyon, and up it, I go up and I see this waterfall bursting out of the face of the rock. Nothing like I've ever seen. And below it, there's this little oasis of sparkling water, green ferns and trees shading me from the hot desert sun. And I'm sitting by this water amazed. This is one of the most beautiful places in the park. And people come from all over the world to see this place. But I look back behind me and I see those shuttles passing by one, nobody realizing that they're missing out on this hidden gem. Now we get them to this point in the story. We got the moral, and now we turn it around on them. You know, a lot of you out there, you are also hidden gems. And you could make such an impact if they knew you were out there. And that's what I do. I help people know that you're out there. And so I hope that you'll join me so that we together can let the world know that you're out there. Thank you.
Awesome. That's great, Kyle. And I just want to say too, it's funny. I knew you were going to be telling me a story, and I still like mentally can't help but as you're like telling the story, just be like, oh yeah, I am getting kind of like drawn in, even though mentally I'm like, I'm totally aware Kyle's telling me a story. He told me he's going to tell it. Anyways, yeah, I love that. That's part of why I wanted to have you on. I'm like, this stuff just works. Even it's on like a subconscious level.
Mm-hmm. And this like brings up another thing, like, hey, if I just tell this story over and over again, aren't gonna people get tired of it? And my question to you is, when Sting goes on stage, do they want to hear Roxanne or not?
Yep.
They want to hear Roxanne. And so, like, just like you're saying, these stories work. We create experiences. I'll give you one more example of a take action now. I was working with a financial planner and creating a presentation around how to plan for retirement. And so I think a take action now is probably a very good story for marketing agency owners as well. And particularly for the men out there, this is we tend to have good stories like this. Ladies, I'm sure you do too, but you're usually the one. Well, we'll see. All right, so I'll be Bob now, the financial planner, and I want you to just pretend that we've been listening to 45 minutes of retirement talk. All right, thank you everybody for listening. I've just got one more thing to share with you. A couple years back, I go into the kitchen and my wife's in there and she says, Bob, the dishwasher is broken. Will you please call a repairman to get it fixed? And I say, honey, I'm a smart man. I'm a financial planner. I'm going to fix that dishwasher myself. And with the money I save, I'm going to take us out to dinner. How does that sound? She shakes her head, waves me off. Good enough for me. I get to work, open up my laptop, search dishwasher repair on YouTube, and I see the different things, start to open up the dishwasher, and I'm moving around, and there's different pieces in there. And I see this one in the back, and I'm trying to get it, and I just can't, and snap. And now it's really broken. I peer over the counter, hoping that my wife has gone and doesn't see what just happened. Sure enough, she's there. She's still shaking her head. She hands me the phone. The repairman's on the line. I call the repairman over. He comes over, fixes or sees the part that I broke in my dishwasher, changes it out, closes the dishwasher and says, Bob, you're good to go. And I say, wait, repairman, the dishwasher was broke before I broke it. Did you fix that too? And he says, Bob, you were just putting too much soap into the dishwasher. You know, it was at that time in my life, I only tried to fix a dishwasher once in my life. And it was on that day I realized how important it was to hire an expert, somebody who fixes dishwashers every day, to help me out with this. And the funny thing is, if I just would have really called him in the first place, I really could have saved enough money to take my wife out to dinner, because he would have told me I was just putting too much soap into the dishwasher. You know, a lot of you out there, you're only going to plan your retirements once in your life. And how much more important of a decision is this? Well, I help people plan their retirements every day. And just like it was with me, one phone call could save you a tremendous amount and allow you to really live the retirement that you've been visualizing, that you've been dreaming of. So I hope that you will join me in hiring an expert so that we can create the retirement of your dreams together. Thank you.
Awesome. Nice. Thanks for sharing that one, Kyle.
Mm-hmm. That's one of my favorites.
That's good.
It gets people laughing. It's funny. And again, most guys have at least one story like this.
Well, I was going to say too, how do you feel about this? Should people use humor? Is that, some advanced postgraduate stuff? Should you do it? What's your take on that?
Really good question. So should people, humor is very, if you can use humor, you should.
Okay.
If you can't, then yeah, don't try and force it. But there's a couple of really good places that humor is great everywhere. But one of the best places for humor is particularly if your story is a challenging, emotionally challenging, trauma, death, kind of story. And if you take us into a really dark place, sometimes it's nice to just sprinkle a little bit of humor in there. We want to allow people to experience different emotions, but staying in any one, and particularly heavy emotions, for too long will cause people, they'll be like, this is too much, I'm going to disengage. And so cracking a little joke at yourself here and there, when telling something heavy will relieve some of the tension for people and allow them to feel safe in that story.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah. So with all three of these things together, the beauty of this is it creates a very simple and flexible system that we can use. A lot of the times I will build a whole talk from front to back with my clients using these stories, using their teaching, and using their call to action to weave it together into a presentation. And this is what I do in my group program called Story Pro. It's a mastermind format where over the course of 7 weeks, we build a high converting signature talk together. We'll start, each week has a different theme. One week is the unforgettable origin story. Another week is how we create our teaching. Another is how we create a great call to action. And then there's other trainings in between that would create a high converting signature talk from. And the beauty of once we have this talk built, and once you have gone through the frameworks and the processes and the understanding, you have a whole new level of ability to tell stories. And this is when people, they get their talk developed, but now they can start improvising and creating and understanding exactly how to share a story. They go from like seeing an ideal client and just fire hosing them with their excitement to thinking about, well, what do I know about this person? What are their pain points? What do they need? What do they want? And how can I craft a story that resonates with them? And so one of the most beautiful things, and it kind of sums this up, is storytelling is never about you. It's about your listener. And when you can really understand that and learn how to connect the dots between our stories and our listeners, things are going to dramatically change in your business.
Definitely agree. And man, yeah, I'm lost for words. I just want to agree more with that. And just, yeah, it's something I've continued to work on. And I hope everyone else takes this seriously. If nothing else, I think getting people to try this if you haven't yet, or think back to those times where you've listened to somebody and you've just been drawn in, whether it's one of Kyle's stories, whether it's another presentation you've been a part of, and wouldn't it be nice to be on the other side and be the person with that particular tool set or tools in your toolkit, I think is hugely powerful.
Yeah. So I'll love to share the details of the upcoming workshop. We start in August, and we will be creating a fully power-packed signature talk that you're going to be able to start using these things right away. Many of my students, they take, after one or two of the lessons that we're doing, they're already applying these things and putting them to good use. One of the gifts I'd love to extend to your audience, just to make sure that this workshop is a good fit for them, is a free 45-minute story roadmap session where we can hop on a call one-on-one and talk about your stories, your business, your clients, and create a roadmap for what stories we need to tell, how we can tell them to make a big impact and get people excited for working with you. And if there's a fit, I'll happily share more details about the program and get you started up. But I feel that this is an amazing fit for agency owners. And with the way that, with the high ticket packages that you charge, getting one extra client will pay for this service many times over.
Nice. Awesome. Well, I appreciate it. I think, a story roadmap, definitely a great way to kick things off. And I'm going to put the link where people can find it, Kyle, but where is it that people should go to get in touch with you?
Yeah, you can go to the storyengine.co. That is my website where you can learn more about me, see my books, my podcast, my content. I've got tons and tons of storytelling useful content there. But you can go to the storyengine.co/roadmap and book your 45-minute call. These are only open until the end of July, so make sure you get these booked quickly. And my time slots are filling up, and it's not just these roadmap calls, but many other people are coming on. So there's only a certain amount of time slots available. So I recommend
please don't put this off if you're interested. Now would be the time. Like Kyle said, this is only available through the end of July, which is why we're posting this when we are now, so you can take advantage of this as he moves and gets us going in August. So awesome. Well, thank you, Kyle, so much. Any parting words, or I should say, any parting stories?
Yeah, we'll do one more story. When the pandemic happened, I had to disband my team and my agency, and I have so much respect now from going through that process for all of the work that you are all doing out there. And I really believe, even as marketers, even as entrepreneurs, that we are playing a part to really make this world a better place. And I believe the work you do is very, very important for the local businesses in the United States that are having to evolve, adapt during these really unprecedented times. It is so important to do the work that you are doing. And I believe that we are serving the true core of the American economy, the American spirit, and beyond. This is not just exclusively an American thing, but I believe like entrepreneurship, leadership, visionary, and creativity that you people work with and serve is one of the most important resources that we have on the planet right now. And so I'm so grateful for everybody who's listened through. I'm grateful for all of you who continue to show up. And I'll leave you with one more story. So I grew up in Utah, but I've recently moved to Hawaii. Now, I'm an amazing skier, but there's no skiing to be had here. And so I started to learn surfing. The first day, I went to Costco, bought a foamy surfboard, and went out into the waves. And I caught 0 waves. I was just smashed around, barely survived. And I was like, okay, I've got to do something different. And so the next day I hired a coach, a surf coach. And he took me out the same place. And this time he pointed out there's a rip current right here. There's some rocks under the water here you want to involve. And he helped me find the perfect spot where I could really catch a wave. And then once we were in the good spot, as soon as I started paddling, he told me when to paddle and would give me a little push. And so I went from catching 0 waves the first day to more than I could count being totally exhausted, having the very best time of my life. And I'm so grateful for having hired a guide that could help me experience this. And now it's something that I do as much as I can, and I found a lot of love for. I still have a lot to learn. I'm not that good, but I'm enjoying myself.
Yeah.
And just like with me and my surf coach, with you and hiring a guide is going to get you having these results faster, experiencing what you want faster. It's going to help you avoid the hazards, to just like I did in the water, to really have the best experience out there. And so I hope that that from today and what you've learned, that you'll see it's the right time to hire a guide, and so that we can create the message that's really going to get the results that you've always wanted for your business together.
Awesome. Thank you, Kyle. So again, I'll put the link down below, but everyone, if you want, head over to thestoryengine.co/roadmap. Get in touch with Kyle there. Do not put it off, and let him be your guide. So thanks again, Kyle.
Thank you so much, Adam. Absolute honor.